Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the FIABC USA presentation for this month. And we are excited to have our guests from FIABC Belgium, Madam President Jose, and
my man.
And her men, the people who help her run FIABC Belgium. So we're excited to have you guys with us this morning. I also want to say hello and thank you to our illustrious leader, Della Booth, for being here, and for everyone else, welcome everyone else to be here. I am Dawn Ori from San Diego, California, and I'm with FIABC USA as well. So today we're going to start by by saying hello to the president of FIABC Belgium and give her an opportunity to speak and let us know. Actually, before we do that, I'd like to introduce Della Booth, our illustrious leader, and let her have a moment to speak, and then we'll go into the presentations.
Thank you, Dawn. We just want to welcome FIABC Belgium to our program today. We're very excited to be able to partner with you in this program and present Belgium real estate to FIABC USA. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are very pleased thank you for the invitation, Della. It was a very nice surprise. I'm also very happy to pronounce, but I think most of you people know it, that we have a completely new restart of our chapter of FIABC Belgium with a complete new board. And I'm very proud that the members of our board they have a long time of experience in different kinds of real estate. And well, we want to share this with you, even though Belgium is not that large, the big country as you are from, but we want to say that there are a lot of opportunities for foreign investments to invest here in Belgium. Well, Glenn is one of the board members. He's the vice president of FIABC Belgium. He's also a chairman of FEXPRO, and FEXPRO is one of the principal members of FIABC Belgium, especially for the promoters, the experts. Look at all his, that's good for you, Glenn. Wow, great. As you see, FEXPRO. But I think you will hear more of it when the time is coming up. You will hear more of it. He's also chairman of the IVV Belgium for the investments. If I'm saying wrong, please, Glenn, correct me. And he's a board member of CIB East Flanders, one of the largest associations for the real estate brokers, professionals. And he has a company also. He works also as his company name is Imano. Well, Glenn, if I forgot something, please, it's up to you.
Thank you, Jus, and welcome all, and thank you for joining us for this webinar about the panorama of the Belgian real estate market 2022. Maybe I met some of you in Paris, where we were present at the 72nd World Real Estate Congress in June. I don't know, I can't see you all on the screen. But anyway, let's proceed with this panorama of the Belgian real estate market. So, this should be it.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, good. So off we go. And so here you see again the 72nd World Real Estate Congress in Paris, where we were present, where we met probably some of you. Panorama of the Belgian real estate market is the subject of today. I will first give the panorama on the various components of this real estate market. And then afterwards, Geert will give you all the fiscal and legal advice concerning this market and investing in it. Commercial real estate investment, the outlook for 2022. You see there a diagram with the sales from 2015 up to 2021 and the forecast for 2022. So you see that sales are around, on average, in between 4 billion and 5 billion, or even 6 billion euros per year, and that the forecast for 2022 was 4 billion euros. To understand the market of today, we must first return a little bit in time to pre-war conditions. Then market sentiment was high heading into 2022. Funds having cash and were looking to deploy capital, causing demand for commercial real estate poised to remain strong in 2022. Quality assets for sale across sectors could receive dozens of offers at that moment. Yields for offices, industrial, and some retail formats were compressed to record lows, and relaxed travel restrictions facilitated the return of international investors to our country. Annual volumes of around the 4 billion euro mark are expected for 2022, despite the war conditions. Inflation reached 9.3% in March due to surge in energy prices, and an average of 8.4% is expected for 2022 in our country. This is the outlook now that we just finished the third quarter of 2022. Take-up declined compared to the first 3 quarters of last year, but remained in normal range. So no worries there. Vacancy is under downward pressure following large deals in existing space. Up to September 2022, closing already includes almost 3 billion euros of commercial real estate deals, including the landmark North Galaxy offices sale, which was a 600 million euro deal. The North Galaxy offices were bought by a South Korean pension fund, and this is a very important confirmation of the stability and the safety of our real estate market despite the war conditions in Europe. Despite uncertainty caused by this war and rising inflation, so the Belgian commercial real estate market remains extremely attractive to investors. Stability and relatively favorable pricing. An ESG warning though, environmental, social and governance will be a central theme in 2022 and beyond. Value erosion presents a real threat to assets for investors finding themselves behind the ESG curve. There are ESG doubts, however. New York University professor Aswat Damodaran questions ESG as an empty box, enriching consultants, bankers, and rating agencies. He describes it as the most oversold and overhyped concept in the history of business. Which one of these two visions is correct? Only time will tell. Probably the truth will lie somewhere in the middle, as usual. Moving on to offices and the Brussels offices take-up and forecast. You see again the diagram from 2015 to 2021 with an average take-up of on average 400,000 square meters and more. And the forecast for 2022 was slightly over 400,000 square meters. This is Belgium. This is Brussels take-up. So Brussels is the capital of Belgium. You probably also know it as the capital of the European Union because all the offices, or almost all the offices of the European Union administration are in Brussels. So we will have a look at the different components of this market. There was a good take-up in 2021, 492,000 square meters, and 2022 expected to exceed expected to exceed 400,000 square meters. Home working and ESG requirements have led to high demand for quality spaces. The private sector signs about 60% of the deals, and 40% of the take-up comes from the public sector. This supported by the Belgian government's new acquisition policy and the EU's ongoing portfolio renegotiation, pushing for carbon neutrality in their buildings. This resulting in a 350 euro per square meter office prime rent in the central business district downtown, Brussels and €240 per square meters in the Brussels North region. The regional market then. The regional office market remained remarkably consistent through the recent difficult COVID years. 2021 saw 200 and almost 300,000 square meters of letting and sales activity. The Flemish markets rebounded with 258,000 square meters of take-up. This driven by diverse occupiers across all geographic markets: Antwerp, Ghent, Mechelen, Kortrijk, and Hasselt. Walloon markets were much quieter at 39,000 square meters of take-up and more reliant on the public sector. Here you also see the difference between the two main regions in Belgium, which is the Flemish region with thriving economic activities, and the Walloon region where it is much quieter. 2022 regional market demand expected to be driven by a limited short-term pipeline, so a lack of projects, increasing demand for flexibility, and companies responding to mobility concerns via decentralization. All this resulting in a regional office rent for between 150 and 170 euro per square meters. Notable, space around major train station is and will be priced. This resulting in thriving building activities around the stations, such as here the station in my city in Ghent, where you have a look, for example, at the Diamond building in the middle, which is the main office of ING Bank. This way, the government wants to reduce the commuting of the workforce and also reduce the never-ending traffic jams. So retail then. Retail take-up by format in Belgium from 2015 to 2021. We saw a steadily rise from 300,000 square meters in 2015 up to almost 500,000 square meters in 2021. With all these figures, you have to take in consideration that Belgium is, as you said, a small country with only 11.7 inhabitants in it. Retail market hit a new record in 2021 with a take-up of 482,000 square meters, almost 500,000, despite pandemic worries. Polarizing market. It's a polarizing market with out-of-town and AAA performing very well, but secondary and tertiary markets struggling. Notable is that locations with a strong residential catchment are thriving. The broad retail real estate had an extraordinary 2021, again, despite the pandemic uncertainty. Sales figures from November 2021 showed a year-over-year increase of 12.3% in the volume of goods, excluding fuels sold. E-commerce cooled somewhat in 2021, the start of a trend. First half of 2022 retail take-up so far is in line with multi-year average, just over 223,000 square meters, heading for the 400,000 square meters forecast as told. Downward corrections of rents are seen in the retail sector due to the pandemic fallout. Notably is that Belgian retail vacancy rate decreased to 11.6% in 2022. It is the first time in over 10 years that the retail vacancy rate decreased in Belgium. The value of sales in retail trade, excluding fuels, continued to increase in the second quarter of 2022, and consumer confidence rose slightly to -11 in the second quarter, coming from -16 in the first quarter. Footfall numbers in retail and recreational locations are back in line with pre-COVID numbers. In other words, we all went back shopping in person and did somewhat less shopping online. Due to inflation, consumer prices soar, but by June 2022, retail sales decreased by 5.34% in volume. The strongest decreases were registered from non-physical retail, such as e-commerce, which is very notable. In-store fashion retail has seen strong positive growth in both first and second quarter of 2022. Moving on to logistics and industries. Here you see the take-up of industrial and logistic buildings in Belgium from 2015 to 2021, which averaged between 1.5 million square meters up to over 2 million square meters in 2021. Disruptions to the global supply chain have dominated headlines in 2021. Renewed consumption combined with labor market and operational frictions disrupted the normally finely tuned logistic machine, resulting in companies increasingly hedging against these headwinds via the occupier market, driving take-up to a record 2.17 million square meters in 2021. What's the outlook for 2022? Industrial and logistics markets struggle at the moment. They are meeting strong demand for further e-commerce adoption. Think of all the returns. Occupiers seeking solutions to supply chain disruptions, which means that they are buffering stocks. Virtually no availabilities for modern logistics space in our country, and this will continue to put upward pressures on rent and land prices. Land prices rose, depending on the region, 18% in Hainaut, 100 euro per square meters, to 25% East Flanders, my region, to 160 euros per square meter. The rents rose accordingly to a price fork of 43 to 48 euro per square meter. The trend is expected to accelerate to much higher level. Prime yields, on the other hand, are under pressure, down from 4.9% in 2019 to 3.85% early 2022, and further down by the second quarter of 2022. This is considered a game changer for this market. Residential then. Here you see the annual residential development in Belgium from 2014 up to 2020. In green, you see the number of apartments. In black, you see the number of houses. And we are averaging around 50,000 houses and apartments per year, with 2019, the best year, with over 60,000 units constructed and sold. What are the house pricing drivers in our countries? There are two main drivers, in my opinion. This is the never stopping increase in population. You see there the diagram from 2000 up to 2020. And we went from just over 10 million inhabitants to over 11 million nowadays, almost 11.7 million people in our country. So this is 20% in the plus in 20 years, which is a hard nut to crack if you consider that all these people have to have housing, they have to live somewhere. So our population is increasing at a rate of, on average, 70,000 people per year, combined with something I will explain later, the decohabitation factor. You see there the housing credit evolution, and here you have a very important indicator of the safety of the Belgian market. You see the dark green line, horizontal green line, which is the average mortgage for buying a home. And you see that this line is well under the average price of houses, apartments, and villas. So this means that this market is a very safe market because mortgage levels are way lower than the value of the houses. So no danger here for a crash. Combined with the pressure of the ever increasing population, this puts a very solid fundament under this market. Here you see the price evolution compared over 10 to 40 years, which investment gave the most return. Over 10 years, it was stock listed real estate. You see it there below. Then gold over 20 years, building plots over 30 years, but over 40 years, it was still the stock market marginally winning over houses. So the stock market had a return of 10.6% on average over 40 years. Houses had on average an 8.5 return. So you see that this is a very good result for our residential real estate market. Here you see it in a graph, the Belgian stock market versus apartments, where apartments come steadily increasing the value, where the stock market is, as we all know, a bit more fluctuating. Drivers and threats to the residential markets. The number of households and population is rising. The number of singles is the highest on record at 35.3%. We need more and smaller units built, and rising prices and loan interests are a threat to affordability. Registration tax abatements soften somewhat the higher prices. You see here the evolution of the mortgage rates, which go steep up by early 2022. We come from 1%, and for good clients, even a mortgage rate of just under 1% in 20 years. And now we are on average at 3%. So mortgage rates have tripled in less than a year time. Reducing somewhat the buying power of the candidate investors. What is the outlook for our residential market? Numerous new funds are looking to deploy capital in this asset class. Insufficient supply for block sales is the major problem for institutional investors. As a result, negotiations have been advancing to earlier stages, and yields are to be expected in between 2.75 and 3.5%. Are you one of these new investors? And to answer all your questions, legal and fiscal, about investing in Belgium, I will now hand the word to Geert de Neef, who will tell you all about structuring real estate investments in Belgium and the fiscality and legal concerns about it. Geert, here you go.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
Before you start, I want to just take a minute to just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself as well, because we didn't have the opportunity to learn about you. So if you'd like to talk a little bit about yourself, please feel free.
Yes. Hello, I am, do you see the slides?
Yes.
I see your slides, yes.
Just start the slideshow.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for organizing this webinar. I am Geert de Neef. Together with Glenn, I have taken the initiative to start the IVV, the Institute for Real Estate Planning. And we also, as indicated, we help youth as loyal lieutenants to give a new elan to the FIAPSI Belgium chapter. I am a lawyer with the Brussels Bar. I have a practice which is mostly related to transactional events in companies in real estate. And today I'm thankful that I have the opportunity to share some key comments on real estate structuring on the Belgian market from a legal and tax perspective, because obviously making a good real estate investment is paramount. But even then, if you succeed in doing so, you wanna have an optimum organization of this acquisition or disposal, and make sure that not more than legally necessary of your profit or added capital gain is handed over to the treasury. So I will take 15 minutes to explain some key topics in this respect. So in general, what can I say about Belgium? Well, Belgium is an open country. It's a kind of an entrepreneurial friendly country, although of course, like many countries, we suffered from some increased bureaucracy. But in general, for foreign investors investing in Belgian real estate, there are no real financial restrictions. There are, of course, certain legal and tax restrictions on compliance obligations which apply. For example, DAC 6, anti-money laundering provisions, know your customer, know your client rules, etc. In general, as a foreign enterprise, if you only acquire Belgian real estate, you will not be deemed to have a local enterprise in Belgium unless you formally open a branch. So it's not so difficult to acquire, for instance, as a US investor, a Belgian real estate. What you do have, and that is something which you see in many countries, including the US, you have more and more anti-money laundering provisions, KYC rules, which indicate that if you do a certain type of structuring, if you are an intermediary person like a real estate agent, a real estate broker, a lawyer, a registered accountant, you can be held to declare certain types of operations to the Ministry of Finance because all types of so-called aggressive planning is now subject to an increased reporting and compliance obligation. That is something that stems from the European Commission, but it's also something that on a more global level has been introduced thanks to the OCDE, to the United Nations, etc. These rules exist in the US as well, so it's not something really atypical. Belgium has a solid legal legislation on civil law, corporate law, and tax law. There is a new property law enacted, which was enacted in 2021, which has not dramatically changed our legislation. It has just defined in a more solid way certain types of real rights and also the content of property law. So we are under the civil law system as it was introduced by Napoleon some 200 plus years ago. We are not subject to the common law as you have in the Anglo-Saxon countries like the UK, Canada, the US, and Australia, and some other countries. Belgium, however, I'm not saying it's legally its paradise. You need to take into account that if you do something in Belgium, if you invest in real estate, there are quite some rules on building permits, environment licenses, etc. As far as the procedure is concerned, the duration is concerned. So, for instance, take Brussels. Brussels is a city which still offers very interesting investments as far as return yields are concerned. But you need to take into account the timing between when you buy a piece of land before you can actually start building. You're easily 1 to 3 years underway before the first brick is actually attached to the soil. So that is something you have to take into account. But again, it's something that all investors, also all Belgian investors, have to live with. And I think in many other countries, the same rules apply. So I'm not going to spend too much time on details today. I just want to clarify the basic rules, how you structure a transaction. I think in the context of today, it's focusing on the acquisition of the real estate. Those of you who already have one, well, they all probably also have an idea how the disposal procedure works. But as far as the acquisition is concerned, there are two main options, which is an asset deal or a share deal. If you do an asset deal, it will consist of the transfer of ownership or the transfer of a real right from the seller to the buyer. So you're buying a piece of land, you're buying bricks, you're buying something material. What is the legal consequence? Well, the legal consequence is very simple. It's only the real estate or the real rights on the real estate or the real easements, which is a kind of a facility, a right to use, are transferred from the seller to the buyer. The tax consequences are that transfer taxes apply. So we have registration duties, which goes from 12.5% to 10%. Some reduced rates apply as well. Or VAT. If VAT applies, there is no registration duty. That's 21%. It may seem expensive, but on the other hand, you have the right to deduct your VAT on your investment. So the 21% is actually only a final cost on the added value, on the margin you realize, because you can deduct your upstream, your incoming VAT. If you sell with registration duties, your incoming VAT on your building costs is finally lost. So it's a calculation you have to make, and we can help you with it. If you do a share deal, it implies that the shares of the company owning the real estate are transferred. On the transfer of these shares, there are no registration duties or no VAT. However, there are certain anti-abuse rules. If it would be very, very clear that you're actually selling real estate instead of a company, a fiscal requalification can apply, meaning the way you present the transaction is set aside and is replaced by the tax authorities about what they consider to be the real transaction, meaning you have sold a piece of land, you have sold a building, instead of pretending that you have sold a company. It all depends a bit. When you structure such a transaction, actually it's relatively simple. There is also some jurisprudence, but you need to have a business motive other than a tax motive to structure the transaction. If you have a business motive, as a general rule in Belgium, you are free to apply the way of the most favorable taxation. As we say in French, le choix de la voie la moins imposée. You are entitled to choose the structuring which is tax favorable, as long as it is not the only reason why you structure a transaction, and as long as you respect all the consequences of your choice. So that's a bit, I would say, from a very high altitude, these basic rules. Now, putting money in an acquisition is one thing, getting money out is equally important, at least. So there are various methods to have real estate distributed from a company to its shareholders, for example, by distribution in kind. Such distribution of a net dividend is subject to a withholding tax of 30%, which withholding tax can be reduced to a lower rate, for example, under the US-Belgian tax treaty, or even to a zero rate, depending on certain other treaty applications. You can do a dividend distribution in kind. You can also do a dividend distribution in cash. Both are tax-wise treated in the same way. Again, these are some of the main choices you have. Now, when we consider structuring real estate, you can, of course, as a US enterprise, US company, buy real estate directly in Belgium. In such a case, any profits, capital gains will be attributed to Belgian taxation and may be exempt in the US if on a later stage you realize an added value, a capital gain. Most investors, they set up a local company for various reasons, legal reasons, tax reasons, because the difference between the local branch and the head office becomes much clearer if you have a local company instead of a branch, which is not a separate legal entity. There are also various types of investment funds which exist in Belgium. There are regulated and non-regulated funds, as well as private funds and public funds. So we have our own REITs, real estate investment or interest trust. The most common funds
Mhm.
used by private investors are a normal corporation. You can use a normal Belgian company. You can use a specialized real estate fund, an FIIS, which is destined to invest in bricks, so in pieces of land, in buildings. Or you can have a so-called private privac, who does not invest in buildings, but in real estate companies owning these buildings. There are various types, various possibilities. So if you have FIIS, it will be more convenient for direct owning of real estate, whilst the private privac in general is more convenient for owning shares in real estate companies. The private privac and the FIIS, they enjoy a special and transparent tax regime. In certain cases, this may lead to no taxation for foreign investors. You can compare it with an LLC. So it's a kind of a transparent entity which has legal identity, but where taxation is effectively deferred to the shareholders of the fund. So the best comparison, I think, would be with an LLC, not a C corporation, but with an LLC. An SPV, if you have an existing SPV, a normally taxed company, you can also convert it into such a fund. But then if it's an FIIS, you will be subject to an exit tax of 15% because you're going from a taxed to a non-taxed regime. And obviously the tax authorities want to pick their piece of the cake when you go from a taxed to a non-taxed status. So these are in general, I would say, in a very, from a significant altitude, the basic rules which apply. Of course, much more can be said about this. I had the pleasure of authoring some books about structuring of real estate, so it's easy to fill 3 days of seminar with all these topics. But I think as a US investor, these are some key topics you may want to consider. And I would also suggest that these slides that Glenn and I have presented, they will be made available on the FIAPSI website. So any participant, investor, or member of FIAPSI US who wants to have a deeper look into it or who has some additional questions, of course, is always very welcome to ask us. So if there are any questions to Glenn or to me, we will be happy to address them.
Well, thank you very much for your presentations, Glenn and Geert. I want to take a moment to just open it up for questions. But prior to doing that, I also want to just acknowledge and say hello to our immediate past president, Ms. Eugenia Foxworth, who is attending the meeting today, because it's morning for some and evening for others. But I wanted to just give an opportunity to have her have words if she'd like, and to also offer an opportunity for anyone else who has questions to be able to ask questions.
Well, hello, everyone. I am so pleased. I was a little late joining, but I found it quite interesting, and I hope that you continue with this. And I'm happy that you're putting the slides on the website, because at this time, people are looking for opportunities to invest. So thank you. And thank you, Dawn, and
Thank you.
panelists.
Thank you for being here. Maybe we can put everyone on the screen so that we will be able to have a conversation about what the very best things to do in Belgium, the very best way that Belgium can be able to be effective and have more marketing geared towards them. Madam President Jos van der Wouw, if you could unmute yourself and just answer a couple of questions that I have about the Belgian market. So if someone was coming from the US, either of you three or someone else around the world could please answer, what would be the very best thing that they could do first to make sure they're ready to be able to invest in Belgium?
Well, as I'm a Dutch one myself, and I invest in Belgium myself, the first thing I did was to drink the Belgian beer to taste if it's a good life over there. So I said, I fully agree with that. He said yes. Also the prices, it's a very, what I found during my years of experience, that the Belgian real estate market is, like we already heard in the presentations, it's a very stabilized market. So the prices are always going a little bit higher, even during the COVID period, it was a rush. I think it's a good investment also because, like in Brussels, for example, it's the capital of Europe. It's also a good way for the Americans to, it's in the middle, you know, if you want to do business in the Asian part of the world, you can have your business over their offices or even your industries, because we have very good rates for rentals in the industry. You just heard about Glen. It's very interesting. It's a much lower, I guess, than in the States. So it can be a good, how do you say it? Co-location. It's in the middle of, you can, from Brussels, from Belgium, it's very central located to do business all over the world. That's what perhaps Glenn or Geert want to make other points.
I think for as a US candidate investor in our country, the first thing you must be aware of is that since the beginning of this year, there was a shift of the three most important value creators for real estate, which was, as everybody knows, location. Very easy. Now there's a remarkable shift into energy, and how the more a house or a home or an apartment consumes or needs energy for its heating or its warm water, the less it will be valued. As energy prices in Europe were spiking and still are spiking, they are, luckily for us, they are a little bit going down these last month, but we still look at tripled and even quadrupled energy prices for heating. So this has become a very important topic. So this is one thing you have to take in account if you want to buy residential, for example, or even offices. Please take a look at the energy efficiency of the building. There are all kinds of attestations for that. So this is something you really have to do nowadays.
Sorry, please go ahead, Hugh.
No, I also think about in residential mainly, that the rent, there's a huge demand of rental houses, because especially during the COVID, a lot of divorces, many get separations, get single. So there is, for investor, it's good to invest in residential for this time, because there are many people looking for rental houses, and the prices, because of the demand is very high, the prices are also, well, getting too high, getting higher. So I think that's also a good market to keep in mind. Yeah.
Well, the only thing I would like to add, if a US investor comes into Belgium, it's something we advise to all investors. So please make sure to do your homework with your advisors, your US advisors and your Belgian advisors, because sometimes the very first document can be decisive on the further proceedings of the transaction. So this very first letter of intent or whatever, or option to buy real estate is a very important document. So I would suggest that as soon as an interesting building or location is considered, to spend some extra time, not too much, but some extra time trying to figure out and to assess all relevant aspects which can influence the price. Like Glenn said, energy aspects is very important. It may influence the value of a building significantly, much more than before. Environmental licenses, etc., etc. So we often, well, from time to time, we see deals that collapse just because the lift off was being done from a wrong platform, so to say. So that is something important. I'm not saying this to increase our own turnover. I'm just saying this actually to save a lot of costs and save a lot of time. That's the only, well, that's I would say the first advice I would give to the US investor.
Another advice is that depending on the kind of investment you want to make, if you take, for example, in consideration stock listed real estate companies, for example, the logistic companies, their stocks were battered with 40% down this year. And this is in complete opposition to the fact that the warehouses are full. They have an occupancy of 99.9%. Rents are automatically indexated, so nowhere is there for inflation. And the companies that rent spaces, they continue to rent because if they let go a space, they can't find another one. So they are eager to pay and they're willing to pay higher rents. So this is in contradiction with the battered stock prices of these companies. You can find so many opportunities in our country. For example, student housing. In my city, in Ghent, has the biggest student population of all of the cities of Belgium. We have 90,000 students and we're a city of only 260,000 people. So you can imagine when college starts in September or October, the city really changes with 90,000 students in our streets and in our city. But the number of students rose from 60,000 to 90,000 in 10 years' time. So this is enormous because all these students, they need student housing, or almost all of them. And the number of student housing only rose with 10,000 units. So there's an immense shortage of student housing. So this could be a very good business opportunity as well, whether you want to invest direct or whether you invest in a stock listed real estate company dealing with this kind of housing. And so you can find for every kind of investor, there's an opportunity in our country. And as you told, we're in the center of Europe. We have a thriving economy, especially in Flanders. It's a little bit more bleak in Wallonia, unfortunately. But Flanders, even now, in these conditions, the economy is thriving. There's only 5.5% employment. In some regions, it's virtually full employment. So companies even struggling to find the labor force. The market is strong, demand remains strong due to all of these factors. We are fully adapting to the Fit for 55 program of the European Union, meaning that we have to reduce carbon dioxide emissions with 55% by the end of 2030 or the beginning of 2030. So that's not even 8 years from now, as compared to 1990. So this will give our economy another boost as we walk away from fossil fuels to more green energies. This also will transform the real estate market. So hence the importance of the energy consuming condition of real estate you want to buy in reality, in real life. So this is another tip of me. I can give some more, but maybe there are more questions.
I was going to say we have about 10 minutes before we wrap up, and I wanted to make sure that I said thank you, but I did want to take at least 1 or 2 more questions before we go. Does anyone else have any questions about the Belgium market or any ways that they need to possibly work into getting their client what they need in Belgium? Eugenia?
This is a question because when I've been in Belgium, I've seen the students, and there are so many. I have investors now that are concerned about things that, you know, they have invested in. What I'd like to know is how easy is it for an investor to involve themselves in getting a building that's specific to student housing?
Mhm. Yus, will you
Diana,
take this one or me?
yeah, Diana.
If you want to buy bricks for housing students, you can have a look at the market via the different portal sites, and you will always find opportunities, people offering buildings with housing for 10 or 15 or even 20 students. So this can be very interesting investments. But again, there you have to have locally someone who does all the homework for you. If you can't do it yourself or can't come over yourself, you have to structure this investment, as Geert told us, because eventually, as a US investor, a US-based investor, you will be need or wanting to transfer the profits, the dividends from our country to the US. So here also is an important step you have to take, but all this can be arranged. If you want to really invest in solid bricks and see not only the rents coming in, but also hearing the clicks of the value of your bricks, of your building augment every year.
Yes, Eugenia, if you have investors, you can always contact me and I can search for you. Also it's important because there are a lot of student buildings in Ghent, for example, but it's very important that they are legalized because there is also a huge group, group of people who are renting their buildings out as students, but not, legalized. So that's important that it's been taken care of.
Yes, or they were legal, but now they aren't anymore because there are new rules that have to be applied. And those people want to get rid of the building because they don't want to invest in it anymore. So this still is a very interesting investment, but you need to be sure that the building can be, with a little bit of work and a little bit of extra investment, transformed into a building that complies with all the rules.
Yes, Belgium is a
But
land full of rules.
as an investor in student housing, you will be very welcome in our city. As I told, there's at least a shortage of in between 10 and 20,000 units, which puts also a pressure on the normal real estate market, the residential real estate market, as many parents who have 2 or 3 children, they buy, for example, an apartment, a 3-room apartment, and they let their children study in the apartment. But of course, whilst the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years that the 3 students are using the apartment, this apartment is not available for the residential market. So it goes both ways in Ghent, resulting in our city in the highest prices for apartments of all of the Flanders region. So people who invested, let's say, only 5 years ago, or even better, 10 years ago, they are sitting on huge potential profits when they sell it, as value increased so much.
Yes.
Okay, and we have one last question I saw that came across from the chat. Does the Belgium market have its own multiple listing service, like one space where everyone puts their listings so that people can see and search?
Well, can I answer that?
Yes, please do.
Belgium is on that point a little bit slower than the internet than the other countries, because they are starting it. If I at the CIB, I think Glenn they are starting to do the MLS. It's one of the largest associations in East Flanders. They're starting it. They learned from the States how we have to fix it, but it's in the primary school. It's like a baby in a baby shoes or something. I think it's or it's developing, starting to develop, because it's also a mental change. We are, when we look at the countries around us, they want to share that. It's like the listings you have, the multi listings. It's great because you can work all together, but in our country it's not. It's they have to get
also
used to it.
It's also that a given fact that brokers in our country are very individualistic, so they don't like to share, they don't like to work together, which is a big difference with you guys in the United States, because you work so well together. And this is, of course, a given fact because the commissions in Belgium are lower than in, for example, the US or in many other countries. So this is also a reason why Belgian brokers don't want to share. They want it's a smaller commission, but they want it so they want it all for themselves. But this is also a good thing because it makes brokers work very hard to please the client and to give him exclusivity. As for the portal side, what Jus was telling is correct. CIB, which is the Confederation of Real Estate Profession, which unites the brokers, the people that and the syndics, we call it, that do the gesture of the buildings, the managers and so on. They are working, they are building a portal site, which will be online probably by the start of next year, early next year. So there all the members, and there is thousands of members, they have thousands of members. There's like almost 11,000 brokers, realtors in Belgium, and some 6,000 are a member of CIB in the Flanders region, and they will all be requested to work from then on only with the portal site of CIB, which will make it in no time the most important portal site for our country. And this also will be coupled with an MLS system. So things are really moving. As you told, we were a little bit behind in the digitalization, but now it's really moving at a high speed. So by early next year, we should be up and running with a whole new digital system and ecosystem.
Yes, also if I can say something, we have also a different, because in the States you have listing agents, selling agents. They are separately and more separately. So in Belgium we do, well, for example, I'm a broker, I do both. The most brokers here, they are doing the listing and the selling, yeah, at the same time. So if I look in Holland, for example, if you go to the northern part of Belgium, Holland, we also have the buying agent, the listing one. It's separate. So here it's in Belgium, it's development. But like Glenn said, it's the mentality of the Belgian mentality. They want to have it for them all. So we have to do it step by step, and it will come. It will come.
Well,
if I may say something, New York was the last in the US to get an MLS system. I live in New York. Yes. So it can happen.
Well, did the realtors there also didn't like to share?
They don't. A lot still do not like to share. And I'm a broker. I have to call up sometime and say, are you selling this, or are you, is it off of the market? HGAR, I mean, I noticed that Kathleen is on. If you can't show an apartment, you have to take it off for a day or two. And I think that's somewhat encouraging to share these days.
Yeah. But maybe one day in Belgium, we also will have various MLS systems, as I see that Samira, who joined us as well, just said that in the messages that the US has more than 400 MLS systems.
Yeah.
So if we could only have 4 or 5, it would already be good for a competition.
Well, I want to bring Della back on and just say thank you to, first of all, to Madam President Joes van der Wal. I'm saying your name wrong in the last part. Wow, correct?
It's you can call me what you like. It's Wow, van der Wow.
Wow,
Wow.
okay,
Wow.
van der Wal.
Wow.
So thank you, Madam President. Thank you for being here. Mr. Vice President Glenn Geerson and Geert and Geert Denise, thank you both for being here to share the Belgian market. We appreciate you all. And Della, thank you for having us and hosting and being a part and allowing the USA market to actually learn some things outside of the US and to bring Belgium to us. So thank you.
Well, I hope to see you next in 2 weeks in Orlando. I'm coming over, so I hope to see you in person. And if there are any questions, please feel free to contact Glenn, Geert, or myself if we can help you. We would like to help you in the way we can. And thank you for having us. And I wish you all good health and a good business today. Have a nice day. Stay healthy, and we see each other soon.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for
everyone.
having us.
Thank
Bye-bye.
It was
Day.
excellent.
Bye.
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 Bye.